The 15-second commercial. We've seen them, we love them. We love seeing how they're made. They're in demand and more popular to make than ever.
Ooh, I think that was a good one.
It was actually way out of focus, but in the rise of epic B-roll tutorials, camera maneuver hacks, or fancy lenses for those nice wide-angle macro shots, in doing this, are we really talking about what makes a product video or commercial truly successful? I would argue that we are not.
With the democratization of filmmaking gear, editing software, and even access to filmmaking education, making these commercials are more accessible than ever. And you may think, well, that's absurd. Why did you move? What? You could have just sat here and kept talking. So, why do you always wear that hat? Anyway, you may think, well, that's absurd. It's like in every video. There can't be competition because what? Because what? Because they don't have the professional gear that I have, except that I just argued a few seconds ago that the tools are more accessible than ever, even most professional gear. Because I don't know. I just don't know. I am proud of you for being honest. You know how hard it is to find honesty these days? Yeah. Thanks. Why are we talking to ourselves again? No idea, but you should get back to your main point. Yep.
The goal of any video that features a product, whether it's on TV or on social media, is to get the person who's watching the content to eventually take out their wallet or phone and make a purchase or take a specific action. To any business owner with a product, I'm sure that always puts a smile on their face. But as we know, it all depends on how well the video convinces the viewer to make that decision. And if you're a content creator, well, this is where you come in.
But I have a question. What exactly determines a good or even a great product video? Is it the cool sound effects? Is it the super slow motion shots? Is it those unbelievable transitions? No, not that kind of transition. What? Kidding aside, I think you already knew what I actually meant, but as you consider these examples, ask yourself this. What are some of the most memorable commercials you've seen? Like, ever? Can you think of them? Why were they so memorable?
If you're anything like me, chances are these commercials either made you laugh, shocked, sad.
That's not like sad, but that's like happy. Sad happy.
Or so weirded out that you actually started thinking about dumb ways to die. In the very least, I would think that they were so good that I would want to share them with my friends and family.
But now you're probably wondering, well, those things won't necessarily make someone pull out their wallet and buy something. They can just enjoy the content without wanting to buy the product. And that's true, which brings me to what I think the bottom line of what a great product video or commercial should contain, and that's this. It presents a problem or need or a desire and offers a solution. And that's it. But you and I both know that just announcing the problem and providing the solution in a very blunt way—
Are you always tired? Then buy this, please.
Probably won't work. My point being, there's gotta be a sense of connection with the viewer. So we need to be creative in how we establish that connection. Think back to the memorable commercials that you thought of. Among other things, you and I would probably agree some of the most common factors that made those commercials stand out is that they, 1, tell a story, 2, they communicate the brand's value and message, number 3, they're relatable in some sense, sometimes painfully relatable, and then number 4, it offers a solution. And that's it. There was nothing about 1,000 frames per second or crazy transitions. Now, before I get in trouble for saying that, let me say this. These techniques can be very, very helpful in certain circumstances. Like if it is a specific request from the client, then I'm sure these techniques will serve its purpose great. But at the end of the day, All I'm trying to do is examine the bigger picture about what does make a product video successful. And if this sounds obvious to you and you agree with what I'm saying to an extent, then why is some of the most viral content out there focused on how to maneuver your camera in a specific way, or how to float a can in midair? Does this not, and this is my honest, sincere question, does this not take the creativity out of short form filmmaking? And consequentially, does this not de-emphasize the focus on the people who will end up watching these videos in the end, and then structuring our videos accordingly? Okay, let me demonstrate what I mean.
Instead of showing you behind the scenes footage of ways to shoot certain things, I'm instead going to walk you through just two main elements that I don't think are talked about enough. Number one is how to tell a relatable story within 30 seconds. And then number two is the pacing of your edit. Let's start with number one, how to tell a relatable story within 30 seconds.
To hopefully give you some perspective, it's kind of interesting to know that some of the biggest advertising agencies spend thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars finding out ways to tell effective stories in 30 seconds or less. And you may find that some of these stories end up in Super Bowl ads, billboards, or simply in your head, and you just can't get it out. But this doesn't mean that you need to spend this much money to do something similar. All you need to start with is a story that people will most likely respond to, and a shot list.
Creating a shot list becomes so much easier when you know the story you want to tell. So let's focus on telling stories. When thinking of a product video or a commercial, think first about what moves people. And I mean what really moves them. What makes them laugh? What would surprise them? What would make them sad? Or even what would make them tick? And then try and connect that thought to the product you're trying to showcase in your video. To show you what I mean, I'm going to demonstrate an example of me planning a short commercial for a bag of coffee. Totally not an overdone subject at all.
All right, so the concept of this story that I came up with was to kind of point out some of the flaws that I have that I know drive my girlfriend really crazy. And it's little things like leaving the fridge door open or not twisting caps all the way on bottles. I do that pretty often and it drives her insane. So it's one of those things where I want to kind of portray that. It's kind of embarrassing, but I think for this coffee ad, I think that would tie in very well because the concept's going to be, here's me doing all these things first, and then after the coffee, it's going to be corrected and everything's going to be put in the right place. So I'm going to show you that right now, and here we go.
Okay, so from this shot list, I just made sure to film each shot as I had planned. One thing to keep in mind when shooting is to film way more than you intended. I actually covered this a little bit more in depth in another video, but my point being, it's always better to have way more footage than not enough. Because if there's one thing I learned the hard way, it's this. It really sucks having to reshoot something because you don't have enough coverage.
Okay, so we created the story / the concept, we created the shot list for it, we filmed it, now it's time to put it in our timeline and edit the video. And if there's one thing with which I would encourage you to train your focus on when editing your video, it's your pacing.
Think of pacing as the rhythm of your video. Just like how two songs that have two very different rhythms will be completely different in how they sound and even in how they make you feel, your video can also have this effect. When you pair this with the story you created in the first step, you should have a very solid video to begin working with. So the goal of great pacing and what I'm going to focus with my coffee video is 1, finding the right music. 2 is finding the right balance between all forms of media, everything from the shots themselves to the sound effects and the music. You can think of this as the timing of everything in the video.
All right, so for the sake of this video, I'm gonna just show you a completed sequence and I'm gonna break down each step that I took to create this video. So what I started with first was the music. So with this song, I just slowed it down, lowered the pitch a little bit, and this is what it sounds like. And then it stops there. So that's the beginning part. And then the second part, with the music, all I did was I sped it up so that it's a little bit more up-tempo, upbeat, and the music's a lot faster. At the end, it's kind of like, all right, everything's done. All right, so that's the music. Let's show you the clips that I chose. The first clip is me taking out the milk. And then right after, I took a wider shot of the door kind of just banging open against the wall behind it. And then the second is right where I spill the milk. And right there, as you can see, I completely just miss. And then I proceed to pour milk in the bowl. So it just shows you just everything's a mess right off the bat, right? And then after that, I put the cap on. Okay, and then after that comes the kind of the climax of this part of the video, and that's me putting the milk in the sink instead of the fridge. And then it stops, and then I'll put some text saying, you know, let's try that again. And then once it opens up, the first shot was me pouring it into the V60. And then the second shot was a wide shot of it, same shot. And then after that, I got a close-up shot of the coffee dripping into the Kalita. And then a shot of me pouring it into my mug. So that's kind of the sequence of the coffee, right? It's just coffee, pouring, 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 and then pouring into the cup. And that's it. So that's an indication to the viewer that I just had my cup of coffee. And then after that, I go back to each mistake that I made in the first part of the video and I corrected it. So I'm getting the milk out, closing it, and then here's a very quick shot of me not missing the bowl of cereal. And then after that is me tightening the lid of the milk. And then right after, I put the milk back in the fridge and not in the sink. And then I close the door. And then after that, I'm gonna have some text here saying, got coffee. You know, I can put other things like I can put the logo of the company if I say this is for a client or anything like that, but I'm not shooting this for a client. So I'm just gonna put got coffee at the end, and that's gonna be the ad. And then it goes to blurriness. The way I did that is all I did was these two clips here are the same thing. I just cut it right here, and this part of the clip, I put a Gaussian blur. And then I put a cross dissolve effect to kind of transition into that as soon as my hand pulls away. Just like that. Okay.
All right, now that we're done with the video, let's review it one more time and see how it is.
You know, when I created the first version of this coffee video, I stuck to pretty much what I thought worked, which was just a bunch of, you know, static shots packed together with cool music and maybe one or two slow-mo shots. And comparing that to what I created now, I at least realized the importance of telling a captivating story above all else, no matter how short the video or how insignificant the product might be. And it makes a world of a difference in my opinion.
If there's anything I would want you to take away from this video, it's this. It's to think beyond the mere tactics and more into humanizing your videos and stories. Because after all, it's who we make these videos for in the first place. And I think it gives a whole new perspective into creating commercials when we think about it in that way.